Hey there, I'm Shawn, the garden programmer or garden guy here at the Faulkner County Library. And today we are going to be talking about harvesting seeds from tomatoes. This is called the wet method of seed harvesting, which applies to several fruits and vegetables in your garden. And we've chosen Gardener's Delight cherry tomatoes. So whatever tomato you choose, or fruit in general or vegetable, you'll want to make sure it's from your best plants. You might want to sample your product first. Tomatoes, you'll want to pick when they're nice and red. Make sure you have enough. So we've done a half a dozen today tomatoes, and that should give us probably well over 100 seeds, 120 seeds. Keep in mind that you're not going to get 100% yield on these next year. A good yield is going to be somewhere between 80 and 90%. The first step in harvesting our tomato seeds, we'll grab a tomato here, and you can use a small knife. Larger tomato, you can use a larger knife. Make sure you just pick a knife that's comfortable for you to use. When you cut into your tomato, you want to make sure to cut vertically through the tomato. Oh, that's a bit sharp knife. When you cut vertically like that, you expose the seed pockets that are on the edge of the tomato there. If you cut horizontally through, it's not as easy to get the seeds out of the tomato. Both sides of the seed pockets are visible and easy to get to with your spoon. And then there's this little bit that runs through the middle down from where the stem's at, and I'll show you how to get around that in just a second. Finish cutting the tomatoes here. For this, we're doing a small batch, so I just have a clean mason jar here. Make sure it is good and clean and dry. We're going to scoop these seeds out into our little jar here. If you get this little middle bit here in there, it's not a big deal, but it's a pretty simple process. Just take your spoon and kind of scrape the seeds. So what you want to do is kind of lift it up and get your spoon underneath there. And once they're all out, you have this little husk of your tomato here, and you can do a couple things with it. You can compost it for sure, but it's totally edible. You can save it for later for a salad, for cooking, or just enjoy it right now. Pardon me as I chew. That's a good one. And we'll just repeat this for all of our tomatoes. You'll notice, most of you know that around the tomato seeds here, there's kind of this gelatinous, kind of slimy coating around the seeds. And inside that coating are chemical compounds which are designed to keep the seed from sprouting. So what happens in the garden naturally is this fruit would ripen and it would drop to the ground. It would begin to rot, and then it would begin to naturally ferment. And what happens in that process is the compounds that are surrounding that seed are broken down. And so what we're doing in our home is we're tricking Mother Nature into thinking that process has occurred. And then the next step I'll show you is going to trigger that fermentation process to neutralize those compounds. So we've got all of our tomatoes here, and we have all of our seeds collected that we're going to do today. Now we're going to begin getting it ready for fermentation. Handy dandy rubber band here, and some paper towels. You can use cheesecloth if you want, but paper towel works just fine. So it'll let a little bit of airflow in there. What's going to happen is in the fermentation process, in a couple of days, you'll see some bubbles begin to form around the edge, and you'll see a little bit of mold start to grow on the top of the water, which is totally normal. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our seeds, and then you're going to want to add about a cup of warm water. Warm is important, not cold, not hot. And then when we store this, same thing goes. You'll want to store it in a warm environment, not too hot, not too cold. So I'll add roughly a cup of water, maybe a cup and a half, and then just kind of swirl the seeds around in there a little bit, and then we'll just cap it off. Don't put a lid on it with a top. You don't want to seal it up necessarily, but it just lets a little bit of airflow. So there you go, this is ready to ferment. So this step is going to take you, roughly 3 to 4 days. You can let it go a little longer, no problem. You just don't want to let it go so long as the seeds begin to sprout. So now this will go in a nice warm place. I typically pick a windowsill in the house. It doesn't need to have blaring direct sunlight, but just someplace warm. And then you're going to get something like this. This one I did 3 days ago, I believe, but we're going to open it up. It's hard to see probably from this distance, but around the edge here, there are a lot of fine bubbles, which lets me know if you tilt it, you might be able to see that a little bit. These are bubbles all along the glass here. That lets me know that it's been fermenting. There is a little bit of mold on the surface there. And I forgot to mention, In this stage here, you're going to want to swirl this glass once or twice a day, each day, until it looks ready. And then on your final day, when you're ready to get your seeds out, don't mix it up on that last day. Your good seeds are going to sink to the bottom, your viable seeds that you want to keep. Any seeds that are definitely not keepers will float to the surface. Today, they're all on the bottom. So that gives me some hope that I've got a really good batch of seeds here. You can do this at home into your sink. We have a bowl here for dumping. We're going to gently take the water off the top of these seeds. And you can scoop, if you have a wider mouth container, you can get your hand in there if you're not too squeamish about it, but it's gonna pour right off. So you're gonna pour that carefully off. What you don't wanna do is disturb too much of the seeds on the bottom. The main thing is you wanna get any floating seeds off of there and anything that you don't wanna keep. Now we have the seeds that we wanna keep. This would be a little easier at home in a sink. You'll want a strainer, a fine mesh strainer. You gotta make sure that the holes in your mesh are smaller than your tomato seeds so nobody slips through. You can just strain this into your sink or bowl. Bowl works fine. In this case, everything came out of the jar. Nobody got stuck behind. The next step, you're gonna wanna give these a really good rinse. You'll wanna do a little bit more thorough of a job at home, like in the sink. You can get a better rinse than this. So now you have your seeds and they are ready to be dried. We're going to take our strainer here. It's important to choose a good drying surface. In this case, I've picked paper plates with a nice kind of waxy coating because they're a little bit wet and still a little bit of film on them. You don't want to use a paper plate without a coating, and you don't want to use paper towels. For right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our seeds, we're going to tap them out, and they're going to stick together a little bit, and that's fine. So you'll want to take your seeds, they're going to want to clump together a little bit, just because they're still wet and a little gooey. You can see right there's a little bit of that bit of tomato. Not a big deal, you can deal with it when it's dry, it'll be easy to separate out. So let me show you why the wax coating or wax paper or parchment paper is a good idea. You can see here that most of the seeds are loose, but here you can see some of these seeds are stuck just a little bit. So you can take a dry spoon or your fingernail and they come right off. So there we go. Our seeds are all loose. And now we are ready to store them for next year. It's important to properly label our seeds. Today I'm going to give you an example of storing in a Ziploc bag and an envelope. There's lots of different ways you can do this. And then the most important thing for storing your seeds is you want them stored in a cool, dry place. Here at the Faulkner County Seed Library, we store them in a cool, dark place in Ziploc bags, in Tupperware containers. Here we have seeds as old as 2 to 3, 4 years old, and they still do pretty well. So just keep in mind, the longer you store them, the more you might have to plant to get the results that you want. This is the information that you'll want to have for your seeds, just to remind yourself for future years, or if you partake in seed swaps down the road. So you'll want to know the common name. In this case, we are harvesting tomato seeds. You'll want the variety. In this case, it was a cherry tomato, and it was a Gardener's Delight cherry tomato, so we marked that there. You'll want to know where it came from. In this case, it came from the Faulkner County Library and Garden in Conway, Arkansas, and then the date that it was harvested, 2024. This information helps you remember what you saved, and it helps others that you might give your seeds to know what they're planting in future years. So what we'll do is just that simple as taking your seeds and putting it in your bag. And if you'd like, just to be thorough, you're more than welcome to put all this information on your bag as well. We just used a Sharpie. You can put it on here. For today's purposes, I'm just going to use the bag to show you how to do that. You want to press the air out. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to vacuum seal it or anything like that. Just get a lot of the air out. Also helps for saving space for storage. In this case, we're just going to put it in the envelope today. Thank you so much for joining us at the Faulkner County Library today for our tomato seed harvesting video. If you liked what you saw today, make sure you please follow us and like below, and stay tuned for more down the road. If you want to see what's going on at the library and in the community garden out here, please check out fcl.org online and you can see what kind of garden programming we have, upcoming seed harvesting workshops, seed swaps, and other good stuff. And until next time, I'm Shawn, the Garden Guy, garden programmer here at the library, and we'll see you in the garden.